Captain Lee Do-won stood on the bridge of the New Seoul and watched the stars through the massive viewing window. The colony ship had been traveling through space for 3 months now, carrying 50,000 humans to their new home on Kepler 442b. The ship was huge, almost like a floating city with schools, parks, and homes for all the families on board. Do-won was tired, but happy. The journey was going well, and they would reach their new planet in just 2 more months. He thought about his own daughter back on Earth and smiled. These families were brave to leave everything behind and start fresh on a new world. On deck, 7. In the education center, children were having their afternoon break. Kim So-ra was 8 years old, with bright eyes and a love for drawing. She sat at a small table with her friends, Park Jin-ho and Choi Min-ae, working on pictures of what they thought their new planet would look like. Jin-ho was 9 and always asked too many questions. He drew tall purple trees and orange grass. Min-ae was 7 and very quiet, but she drew the most beautiful pictures of families living in crystal houses under 2 suns. "I think there will be friendly aliens on our new planet," So-ra said as she colored a green sky with her crayon. "My dad says we might be the only people there," Jin-ho replied, adding a flying car to his picture. Min-ae just smiled and kept drawing her crystal houses. Their teacher, Ms. Han Yuri, watched the children with warm eyes. She loved seeing their imagination and excitement about the future. The education center was her favorite place on the ship, full of laughter and hope. Far away in space, something else was moving toward the New Seoul. A dark ship with sharp edges and red lights was getting closer. Inside this ship, alien creatures with gray skin and black eyes were planning an attack. Sub-Commander Thaxmore studied the human ship on his screen. The aliens were called Vexians, and they made money by stealing things and selling people as slaves. To them, the human colony ship looked like a treasure box full of valuable prizes. "How many humans are on that ship?" Thaxmore asked his crew. 50,000, Commander. Many families with young ones," replied a soldier. Thaxmore smiled with his sharp teeth. Young humans could be sold for good money in the slave markets. The adults would fight too hard, but children were easy to take and control. "Prepare the boarding ships. We take the young ones and leave," Thaxmore ordered. Back on the New Seoul, Captain Do-won was drinking coffee and reading reports when alarms started screaming through the ship. Red lights flashed everywhere, and his crew rushed to their stations. "Captain, we have 3 unknown ships approaching fast," shouted Lieutenant Bae Soo-jin from her communication station. Do-won dropped his coffee cup and ran to look at the main screen. 3 dark ships were moving toward them like hungry sharks. They had weapons pointed at the New Seoul. "Raise shields and prepare our weapons," Do-won ordered. But he knew the New Seoul was not built for fighting. It was made for carrying families safely to their new home. The Vexian ships attacked without warning. Green energy beams hit the New Seoul's shields and made the whole ship shake. People screamed and ran through the corridors as lights flickered on and off. In the education center, Ms. Han Yuri gathered all the children together. "Everyone stay calm and hold hands," she said, but her voice was shaking with fear. So-ra grabbed Jin-ho's hand while Min-ae held onto her other side. The other children formed a circle around their teacher, scared but trying to be brave. Suddenly, loud banging sounds came from the walls. The Vexian soldiers were cutting through the ships, metal skin with their tools. Smoke filled the hallways as emergency systems tried to seal the holes. Captain Do-won sent security teams to stop the boarders, but the Vexians had better weapons and moved like trained killers. They pushed through the ship's defenses and headed straight for areas where families lived. The alien soldiers wore dark armor and carried energy weapons that made a buzzing sound. Their gray faces had no expression as they searched room by room for what they wanted. Thaxmore led his team toward the education center. His scanners showed many small human life forms in that area. Perfect for his mission, Ms. Han Yuri heard. Footsteps getting closer and pushed the children behind some tables. "Hide and be very quiet," she whispered. But there was nowhere to run. The door exploded open and Vexian soldiers poured into the room. Their black eyes scanned the area and found the hiding children immediately. "Take only the small ones," Thaxmore commanded in his rough voice. So-ra watched in terror as the gray aliens grabbed Jin-ho and lifted him off the ground. Min-ae screamed as another soldier picked her up. More children cried as they were taken from their hiding spots. Ms. Han Yuri tried to stop them. "Leave the children alone!" she shouted and grabbed at one of the soldiers. But a Vexian hit her with his weapon, and she fell to the floor. 12 children were taken from the education center, including Sora, Jin Ho, and Min Ai. The aliens carried them like bags of rice, not caring about their tears and screams. Captain Dowan fought his way through damaged corridors to reach the education center, but he was too late. He found Ms. Han Yuri bleeding on the floor and empty spaces where the children should have been. "They took the kids," Ms. Han Yuri whispered with tears in her eyes. 12 of them. Dowan felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. In all his years in space, nothing had prepared him for this moment. Someone had stolen children from his ship. The Vexian soldiers carried their prizes back to their boarding craft. The children struggled and cried for their parents, but the aliens did not care about human emotions. Sora tried to bite the soldier carrying her, but his armor was too hard. Jinho kicked and screamed while Minnie just cried silently, too scared to make noise. Within minutes, the Vexian boarding ships left the New Sol and returned to their main vessel. The attack was over as quickly as it had started. Captain Dowan stood on his damaged bridge and watched the alien ships moving away from them. His hands shook with anger and fear. 12 innocent children were now prisoners of creatures who saw humans as nothing more than things to sell. Lieutenant Bei Sujin looked at her captain with tears in her eyes. "What do we do now, sir?" Dowan's face became hard as stone. He had never felt this kind of rage before. Someone had taken children from his protection, and that was something no human could forgive. "Send a message to Earth Command immediately," he ordered. "Tell them what happened here." As Bei Sujin prepared the communication equipment, Dowan stared at the stars where the Vexian ships had disappeared. Those aliens had made the biggest mistake of their lives. They had taken human children. The New Sol continued its journey through space, but now it carried something different, along with its passengers. It carried the beginning of a story that would change the galaxy forever. In the medical bay, doctors treated the wounded while parents searched desperately for their missing children. The ship that had been full of hope and dreams was now filled with grief and anger. But Captain Lee Dowan knew something the Vexians did not understand. Humans were not just another weak species to be robbed and enslaved. They were parents, and someone had just taken their young. General Krelthos stood in his command center aboard the massive warship Death's Whisper and smiled with satisfaction. The Vexian Empire controlled 17 star systems, and he had conquered most of them himself. His gray skin bore the scars of 100 battles, and his black eyes had seen the defeat of many species. The general was reviewing patrol reports when Sub-Commander Thaxmore's ship returned from its raid. Krelthos barely looked up from his datapad. Raids on weak ships were routine work, nothing that required his attention. "Report," he said without lifting his eyes. "Successful capture mission, General. We took 12 young humans from a colony." "Transport," Thaxmore announced proudly. Krelthos finally looked up. Humans were a new species in this part of the galaxy, still spreading out from their home world like children learning to walk. They had some decent technology, but seemed soft compared to the warrior races he usually fought. "Bring them to detention. Level 5, the General ordered. "The slave markets on Kronex pay well for young specimens." This was Krelthos making his first terrible mistake. To him, the human children were just another group of prisoners, no different from the hundreds of others he had taken over the years. He had no idea what he had really captured. The 12 human children were dragged through the cold metal corridors of the Vexian warship. The walls were dark and covered with sharp decorations that looked like weapons. Strange alien writing glowed, red in the dim light. Sora held Jinho's hand tightly as they were pushed forward by the guards. Her legs were shaking, but she tried to be brave for Minai, who was crying quietly behind them. The detention cells were small metal boxes with force fields instead of doors. Each cell could hold 2 prisoners, so the children were split up. Sora and Minai were put together while Jinho was placed with another boy named Kim Woo-jin. Dr. Yoon Hai-jin had also been captured during the raid. She was the ship's child psychologist and had been in the education center when the attack happened. The Vexians took her because she had fought to protect the children. Dr. Yoon was put in a cell next to the children so she could see them through the metal bars. Her face was bruised from the fight, but her eyes were still kind and strong. "Children, listen to me," she whispered, so the guards could not hear. "Stay close together and remember that your parents love you. We will get through this." The Vexian. Guards laughed at her words. To them, humans seemed weak and emotional. One guard named Vextar spoke in broken human language. "Your species is soft. Children cry too much. Good for selling, though." Dr. Yoon felt anger burning in her chest, but she kept her voice calm. "You do not understand what you have done. These children have families who will come for them." "No." "Family can reach you here," Vextar replied with a harsh laugh. "Humans too weak to fight Vexian Empire." This was the second mistake. The Vexians thought they understood humans based on their peaceful colony ships and diplomatic messages. They had never seen what humans became when their children were threatened. Meanwhile, on the new Sol, Captain Lee Do-Wan was sending the most important message of his life. He sat in his communication room with Lieutenant Bae Soo-jin, choosing each word carefully. "Earth Command, this is Captain Lee Do-Wan of the colony ship New Sol. Vexian forces have attacked our vessel and kidnapped 12 human children. I repeat, they have taken our children." Do-Wan paused and looked at the star charts showing their location. "Coordinates are included in this transmission. The attackers fled in 3 Vexian warships toward the Kronex system." Lieutenant Bae Soo-jin added her own message to the transmission. "All human vessels, all human colonies, all human military forces. Children have been taken by aliens. We need help." The message traveled through space at light speed, jumping from relay station to relay station. It reached Earth Command in 6 hours. Admiral Park Sang-woo read the report 3 times before he fully understood what had happened. Someone had kidnapped human children. Admiral Park had fought in the border wars and seen terrible things, but this was different. This was not about territory or resources. This was about children being stolen from their families. He immediately sent orders to every human ship in space. "Priority Alpha message to all vessels. Human children have been taken by hostile forces. All available ships report for rescue mission immediately." The message spread like fire through the human colonies. On New Tokyo Station, Captain Ryu Dongmin was loading supplies when the communication came through. He dropped everything and ordered his crew to prepare for combat. On the mining ship Iron Mountain, Commander Nam Ju-won was supervising ore extraction when she received the alert. She left the mining operation and turned her ship toward the Kronex system. Admiral Won Kyung-ho was leading a patrol near the Centauri border when the message reached his fleet. He had 2 daughters of his own back on Earth. When he heard about the kidnapped children, his face became hard as steel. "All ships change course immediately. Maximum speed to these coordinates," he ordered his fleet. Back on the Death's Whisper, General Krelthos was eating his evening meal when reports started coming in. His intelligence officers noticed unusual human ship movements throughout the sector. "General, we are detecting increased human military activity," reported Intelligence Officer Zeklon. Krelthos waved his hand dismissively. "Probably routine exercises. Humans are not a threat to our operations." This was his 3rd mistake, and the biggest one yet. He still thought of humans as just another weak species that could be pushed around without consequences. In the detention cells, Dr. Yoon was telling the children stories to keep them calm. She talked about brave heroes and happy endings, but inside she was worried. She knew that their situation was very dangerous. Sora listened to the stories but kept thinking about her parents. Were they looking for her? Did they know where she was? Jinho was angry more than scared. He whispered to Wu Jin about ways they might escape, even though they were just children trapped on an alien warship. Minnie had stopped crying, but she had also stopped talking. She just stared at the metal walls and held onto the small drawing pad she had managed to keep during the capture. Dr. Yoon noticed that the Vexian guards were becoming nervous. They talked in their own language and kept checking their communication devices. Something was happening that they did not expect. What the Vexians did not know was that human ships were moving toward them from every direction. Cargo vessels were being converted into warships. Mining equipment was being turned into weapons. Medical ships were loading combat supplies. The human response was not just military. It was something the galaxy had never seen before. An entire species was mobilizing because their young had been threatened. Captain Lee Do-won received reports that over 200 human ships were heading toward the Kronex system. Some were military vessels, but many were civilian ships whose crews had volunteered to help rescue the children. "Sir, we have a message from Admiral Won Kyung-ho," Lieutenant Bae Soo-jin announced. "He says the entire Third Fleet is coming to help us." Do-won felt hope growing in his chest. The human race was coming together like never before, all because 12 children needed to be brought home safely. On the Death's Whisper, General Krelthos was starting to realize that something was wrong. His sensors showed human ships gathering in space like a storm cloud. "How many human vessels are approaching our position?" he asked his tactical officer. "Current count is 137, General. More are arriving every hour." For the first time, Krelthos felt a small seed of worry in his mind. This was more ships than humans usually sent, even for major military operations. But he pushed the worry away. His fleet was powerful, and his ship was one of the strongest in the galaxy. What could a bunch of humans do against the might of the Vexian Empire? Dr. Yoon heard the guards talking more urgently now. Even though she could not understand their language, she could tell they were afraid of something. She smiled slightly and whispered to the children, "I think help is coming." General Krelthos was about to learn the most important lesson of his life. He had made the mistake of taking human children, and now he would discover what humans were really capable of when their young were in danger. The Death's Whisper continued through space, carrying its precious cargo of 12 scared children. But it was no longer the hunter. Now it was being hunted. The news spread through the galaxy faster than anyone expected. In the great trading stations, on distant mining worlds, and in the meeting halls of alien governments, everyone was talking about the same thing. Humans were coming. Ambassador Zealon of the Centauri Trade Federation sat in his office on the neutral station Deep Space 7 and watched the reports flooding in. His blue skin had turned pale as he read message after message about human ship movements. "This cannot be accurate," he muttered to his assistant. "No species mobilizes their entire fleet for 12 prisoners." But the reports were true. Human ships were moving through space like a massive wave, all heading toward the same destination. Military vessels, cargo haulers, mining ships, even medical transports, all of them carrying weapons, and all of them looking for the stolen children. On the human colony world New Geneva, Director Lee Yun-soo stood before the Planetary Council. New Geneva was known throughout the galaxy as a peaceful world where humans practiced medicine and helped other species. "The Council has voted," Director Lee announced. "We are sending our hospital ships to join the rescue mission." Councilman Park Jae-min stood up. "But Director, our ships are not designed for combat. We are healers, not warriors." "Yes," Lee replied with fire in her eyes. "We are healers, and right now, 12 of our children need healing from the trauma of being kidnapped. We will bring medical teams to treat them when they are rescued." But everyone knew the hospital ships were also carrying combat medics and trauma surgeons. Because when humans rescued those children, there were going to be a lot of wounded Vexians who would need medical attention too. Admiral Won Kyung-ho stood on the bridge of his flagship Righteous Fury and watched his fleet grow larger every hour. Ships kept arriving from all directions, joining the rescue mission without being asked. "Admiral, we now have over 300 vessels in our formation," reported Captain Kim Tae-ho. "This is the largest human fleet ever assembled." Won Kyung-ho nodded grimly. He had served in the military for 30 years and had never seen anything like this. Human ships that normally competed with each other for trade routes were now working together like a single organism. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the cargo vessel Mountain Mover," announced the communications officer. The cargo ship's captain appeared on screen. His name was Choi Byung-ho, and he commanded a vessel designed for carrying mining equipment. "Admiral, my ship is not built for fighting, but we have converted our cargo bays into troop transports. We can carry 500 Marines and their equipment." "Thank you, Captain Choi. Welcome to the fleet." This scene was happening all across human space. Civilian ships were being converted into warships with surprising speed and creativity. Mining lasers became weapons. Cargo containers became troop transports. Even passenger liners were joining the fleet, their crews volunteering to help bring the children home. On Earth, President Kim Young-suk called an emergency meeting of the Global Council. Representatives from every human nation gathered in the Great Assembly Hall. "The situation is clear. the president announced. 12 of our children have been taken by hostile aliens. I am authorizing the use of all available military resources to bring them home safely. But something else was happening that surprised even the president. Human civilians were organizing themselves without government orders. Factory workers were volunteering to build weapons. Transport pilots were offering their services. Even children were donating their allowance money to help fund the rescue mission. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. Most species fought for territory, resources, or honor, but humans were mobilizing their entire civilization for 12 small children who were not even related to most of them. On the trading station Nexus Prime, alien merchants watched the news broadcasts with growing amazement. The station's administrator, a wise old creature named Gorthek, shook his head in disbelief. In all my years, I have never seen a species react this way, he said to his staff. The humans are not just sending their military, they are sending everyone. His assistant, a young centauri named Veltar, pulled up the latest reports. Sir, human cargo ships are carrying enough firepower to level a small moon. Their medical vessels are loaded with combat equipment. Even their civilian transports have been armed. Gorthak's 4 eyes blinked slowly. What have the Vexians done? Meanwhile, on the Death's Whisper, General Krelthos was finally beginning to understand that he had made a serious error. His intelligence reports showed human fleets converging on his position from every direction. General, we now count over 400 human vessels approaching our sector, reported his tactical officer nervously. Krelthos studied the tactical display with growing concern. The number of ships was impressive, but what worried him more was how they were moving. Human fleets usually traveled in organized formations with clear command structures. But this fleet was different. Ships were arriving independently and taking positions around his force like a tightening net. They moved with purpose, but without the rigid military doctrine he expected. What is the tactical assessment? He asked his war council. Commander Vekmore, his chief strategist, looked uncomfortable. General, this is unlike any human military operation we have studied. They are not following standard battle formations or communication protocols. Then what are they doing? Sir, it appears they are hunting us. The word hunting sent a chill through the Vexian command center. They were used to being the hunters, not the prey. In the detention cells, Dr. Yoon Hai-jin could sense the change. In their captors, the Vexian guards were talking more urgently and checking their weapons more often. Even though she could not understand their language, she could tell they were becoming afraid. Children, I think our rescue is coming soon, she whispered to Sora and Mine. Sora pressed her face against the force field that kept her trapped. How do you know, Dr. Yoon? Because I know your parents and I know humans. When someone takes our children, we do not rest until we bring them home. In another cell, Jin Ho was teaching Wu Jin a song his grandmother had taught him. It was about being brave in dark times and never giving up hope. The other children listened, and some began to sing along quietly. The Vexian guards found the singing annoying and told them to stop, but Dr. Yoon encouraged the children to continue. Sing louder, she said. Let them know we are not afraid. Back in space, the human fleet continued to grow. Admiral Won Kyung-ho received a communication from an unexpected source. It was Captain Lee Do-won of the New Seoul. Admiral, my ship is not equipped for combat, but we request permission to join the rescue operation. Captain Lee, your ship carries civilian families. This will be dangerous. Admiral, those children were taken from my ship while under my protection. I am responsible for them. My crew has voted unanimously to help bring them home. Won Kyung-ho understood. In the human heart, there was no greater duty than protecting children. Permission granted, Captain. Welcome to the fleet. The rescue fleet now included almost every type of human vessel. Warships and cargo haulers, medical ships and mining vessels, passenger liners and research stations, all united by a single purpose. On the neutral world of Kepler Station, representatives from various alien species held an emergency meeting. The Vexian Empire had allies and trading partners who were becoming nervous about the human response. Ambassador Teklon of the Rigel Confederacy spoke first. Perhaps we should contact the Vexians and suggest they return the human children immediately. Why? Asked the Andromedan representative. 12 prisoners are not worth this level of response. The humans will negotiate. Ambassador Zayelan shook his head. You do not understand. I have studied human behavior for 20 years. They do not negotiate when their young are threatened. They simply come and take them back. But surely they will accept reasonable terms. No, Zelon interrupted. There are no reasonable terms. The humans want their children back, and they will destroy anyone who stands in their way. The meeting room fell silent as the alien diplomats realized what this meant. The Vexian Empire was about to face something they had never encountered before. An entire species united in righteous anger. General Krelthos received an urgent communication from his fleet command. The message was from Grand Admiral Vexthok himself, the supreme commander of all Vexian forces. Krelthos, you will return those human prisoners immediately and withdraw from the sector. Grand Admiral, it is only 12 young ones. Surely we can negotiate? Fool. Do you not understand what you have done? The humans are not sending negotiators. They are sending everything they have. Return the prisoners now before this becomes a war we cannot win. But it was already too late for negotiations. The human fleet had formed a massive sphere around the Death's Whisper, with Admiral Wan Kyung-ho's ships at the center. The final confrontation was about to begin, and the galaxy would learn what humans were truly capable of when their children were in danger. General Krelthos had commanded fleets in 17 major battles and had never felt fear like this. The human ships surrounded his forces in a perfect sphere, but they were not attacking. They were just waiting, like predators watching their prey. General, the humans are requesting communication, reported his communications officer. Put them through. Admiral Wan Kyung-ho's face appeared on the main screen. His expression was calm, but his eyes burned with cold anger. Behind him stood Captain Kim Tae-ho and other officers, all with the same deadly serious look. General Krelthos of the Vexian Empire, you have taken 12 human children from the colony ship New Sol. You will return them immediately. Krelthos tried to maintain his dignity. Admiral, perhaps we can discuss terms for their release. The Vexian Empire is willing to negotiate. There are no terms, Wan Kyung-ho interrupted. There are no negotiations. You will return our children now, or we will take them. The transmission ended. Krelthos stared at the blank screen, finally, understanding that he faced an enemy unlike any he had fought before. These humans were not interested in glory or conquest. They just wanted their young ones back. Sir, what are your orders? Asked Commander Vecmore. Before Krelthos could answer, alarms began screaming throughout his ship. His tactical display showed human ships breaking away from the main fleet and attacking Vexian positions throughout the sector. But these were not attacks on his main force. The humans were hitting supply bases, communication relays, and support vessels. They were cutting off his ability to call for help or receive reinforcements. Colonel Oh Min Seo led the first wave of attacks aboard her destroyer Sharp Blade. Her target was a Vexian supply depot on the asteroid mining station Crone 7. All ships, remember the mission. We are not here to conquer territory. We are here to rescue children, destroy their ability to resist, and move on to the next target. The attack was swift and precise. Human ships appeared from hyperspace, destroyed the Vexian defenses, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. Within 2 hours, 6 Vexian installations had been eliminated. Major Shin Hyo-jin commanded a special forces unit aboard the stealth ship Silent Arrow. Her mission was different from the fleet attacks. She was hunting Vexian commanders. Intelligence reports that Commander Dexfall is hiding on Outpost 9, she told her team. He might have information about where the children are being held. The Silent Arrow approached the outpost unseen and launched assault pods filled with human marines. The Vexians had never faced human special forces before and were unprepared for their speed and determination. Within minutes, Commander Dexfall was captured and being questioned about Vexian fleet movements. When he refused to talk, Major Shin leaned close to his face. You do not understand what is happening here. We are not your normal enemies who follow rules of war. Someone took our children and we will do anything to get them back. Talk now, or we will find someone who will. Back on the Death's Whisper, General Krelthos watched his carefully built network of support crumbling around him. Human forces seemed to be everywhere at once, striking with surgical precision. "General, we have lost contact with 7 outposts in the last 3 hours," reported his intelligence officer. "The humans are systematically destroying our infrastructure." "How many ships are we facing?" "Current count is over 600 vessels, sir, but they are not fighting like a normal fleet. They operate in small groups, attack quickly, and disappear before we can respond." Krelthos realized with growing horror that the humans had turned this into a hunt. They were not trying to defeat his fleet in battle. They were surrounding him, cutting off his escape routes and slowly closing in. In the detention cells, the children could hear strange sounds echoing through the ship. Alarms, running footsteps, and urgent voices speaking in the harsh Vexian language. Dr. Yoon Haijin listened carefully to the sounds. "Children, I think the rescue is getting closer. Stay strong and be ready." Sora pressed against the force field of her cell. "Dr. Yoon, will our parents really come for us?" "Yes, child. Human parents never abandon their young. Your mother and father are out there right now looking for you." Jin Ho had been counting the alarm sounds. "The alarms are happening more often now. I think the bad aliens are getting scared." He was right. Throughout the Vexian ship, crew members were becoming nervous and jumpy. They had never been hunted before, and the experience was terrifying. Commander Vecmore approached General Krelthos with urgent news. "Sir, we are receiving reports from across the sector. Human forces are boarding our ships." "Boarding them? For what purpose?" "They are searching for the human children, General. They board each vessel, search every compartment, and then either destroy the ship or let it go depending on what they find." This was something new in galactic warfare. Most species fought to capture ships or territory, but the humans were only interested in finding their young ones. Everything else was secondary. Captain Ryu Dongmin led one of these boarding operations aboard his assault ship Thunderstrike. His Marines wore special armor and carried weapons designed for close combat inside starships. "Remember, we are looking for children," he told his team as they prepared to board a Vexian transport. "Search every room, every storage compartment, every possible hiding place." The boarding action was swift and efficient. Human Marines moved through the Vexian ship like a tide, checking each area methodically. When they found no children aboard, they planted explosives and withdrew. "Target is clear of children," Ryu reported to Admiral Won Kyung-ho, proceeding with demolition. The Vexian transport exploded in a ball of fire, sending a clear message to any other aliens who might be hiding stolen human children. On the Death's Whisper, General Krelthos was running out of options. His fleet was being picked apart piece by piece, and human forces were getting closer to his flagship every hour. "General, perhaps we should consider returning the human prisoners," suggested Commander Vecmore nervously. "If we show weakness now, every species in the galaxy will think the Vexian Empire can be pushed around," Krelthos replied angrily. But his anger was mixed with fear. He had never faced an enemy that fought with such focused determination. The humans were not interested in glory or territory. They just wanted their children back, and they would destroy anything that stood in their way. Dr. Yoon noticed that the Vexian guards were checking their weapons more often and speaking in worried whispers, even though she could not understand. Their words, their body language told her everything she needed to know. "Children, the rescue ships are very close now," she whispered. "When they come for us, stay low and do exactly what the rescue soldiers tell you to do." Mine had been quiet for most of their captivity, but now she spoke up. "Dr. Yoon, will the bad aliens hurt us when the rescue comes?" Dr. Yoon thought carefully before answering. "The aliens are scared now, Mine. They know they made a big mistake when they took you. They will probably try to use you to make the rescue ships go away." "But our parents will not go away?" "No, child. Human parents never give up when their children are in danger." As if to prove her words, the ship suddenly shook violently. Emergency lights flashed red throughout the corridors, and the sound of energy weapons could be heard echoing through the metal walls. The final battle had begun. Admiral Won Kyung-ho stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the tactical display. His fleet had completely surrounded the Death's Whisper and was closing in from all directions. "All ships, this is Admiral Won. Remember, there are 12 human children aboard that vessel. Use precision weapons only. We will not risk harming our own young ones." The human fleet attacked with surgical precision. Instead of trying to destroy the Vexian flagship, they targeted its weapons and engines. They wanted to disable the ship so they could board it and rescue the children. General Krelthos felt his mighty warship shake under the human assault. His weapons were being destroyed one by one and his engines were failing. "General, we cannot win this battle," Commander Vecmore said urgently. "We must surrender." For the first time in his military career, General Krelthos was forced to admit defeat. But he knew this was not a normal surrender. He was about to face the consequences of taking human children, and those consequences would be terrible indeed. The Death's Whisper hung dead in space, its weapons destroyed and engines silent. Around it, 600 human ships waited like hungry wolves surrounding a wounded deer. General Krelthos stood on his damaged bridge and realized his long military career was about to end in the most humiliating way possible. "General, the humans are demanding our immediate surrender," reported his communications officer with a shaking voice. Krelthos looked around at his crew. These hardened Vexian warriors who had conquered star systems now looked like scared children themselves. They had never faced an enemy that fought with such terrifying determination. "Open communications," he ordered. Admiral Won Kyung-ho appeared on the screen again, but this time he was not alone. Behind him stood Captain Lee Do-won from the New Seoul, and their faces showed no mercy. "General Krelthos, your ship is disabled and surrounded. You have one chance to avoid total destruction. Return our children immediately." Krelthos tried, one last time to negotiate. "Admiral, perhaps we can reach an agreement. The Vexian Empire is willing to discuss terms for the release of the prisoners." Captain Lee Do-won stepped forward, his eyes burning with parental rage. "Those are not prisoners. Those are our children, and you are going to give them back right now. And if I refuse?" Admiral Won's response became legendary throughout the galaxy. His voice was calm but filled with deadly promise. "Then we will tear your ship apart piece by piece until we find them. You should have thought about negotiations before you touched our kids." The transmission ended, and Krelthos knew his time was up. He turned to his tactical officer. "How many human boarding ships are approaching?" 57 craft, General. They are carrying what appears to be an entire Marine division. In the human fleet, Sergeant Kim Tae-ho was preparing his Marines for the boarding operation. These were not ordinary soldiers. They were parents, brothers, sisters, and friends of human children. They had volunteered for this mission because they understood what was at stake. "Listen up, Marines," Sergeant Kim announced to his assault team. "There are 12 scared children somewhere on that ship. Our job is to find them and bring them home safely. Everything else is secondary." The Marines checked their weapons and equipment one final time. They carried special, non-lethal weapons designed to disable enemies without causing explosions that might hurt the children. "Remember, we want prisoners who can answer questions," Kim continued. "But if any alien tries to harm those kids, you have my permission to show them what humans do to child kidnappers." The boarding ships attached to the Death's Whisper, like metal leeches. Cutting tools burned through the hull armor while the Vexian crew watched helplessly. Their own weapons had been destroyed, and they could not stop the human assault. In the detention level, Dr. Yoon Hai-jin heard the sounds of cutting and knew rescue was finally coming. She gathered the children around her as much as the force fields would allow. "Children, our people are here. When the rescue soldiers come, stay calm and do exactly what they tell you." Sora pressed her face against the barrier of her cell. "Will we really go home, Dr. Yoon?" "Yes, child. Very soon, you will see your parents again." The first human Marines burst into the detention level like a force of nature. They moved with military precision, but their eyes showed the desperate urgency of people looking for lost family members. Sergeant Kim Tae-ho led the assault team down the corridor, checking each cell quickly. When he saw the human children behind the force fields, he felt a mixture of relief and rage that almost overwhelmed him. "Found them!" he shouted into his communicator. 12 children, all alive!" The Marines quickly disabled the force field generators and the prison cells opened. Sora ran into the arms of a female Marine who knelt down to comfort her. "It's okay, sweetheart. You're safe now. We're taking you home." Jin-ho looked at the human soldiers with wide eyes. "Are you really here to rescue us?" "Yes, son. Your parents sent us to bring you back." Minnie was still too scared to speak, but she allowed Dr. Yoon to carry her toward the waiting Marines. The other children followed, some crying with relief, others too shocked to show emotion. While the rescue was happening, other Marine teams were hunting through the ship for General Krelthos and his senior officers. The Vexian crew offered no resistance. They had seen what humans could do when angered, and they wanted no part of it. Captain Ryu Dongmin found General Krelthos in his command center, sitting in his chair like a king who had lost his kingdom. The general's scarred face showed a mixture of defeat and confusion. "You are General Krelthos?" Ryu asked. "I am. You are under arrest for the kidnapping of human children." Krelthos looked around at the human Marines surrounding him. "I do not understand your species. Why would you risk so much for 12 young ones? They are not even your own offspring." Captain Ryu's expression hardened. "That is exactly why you will never understand us. Those children belong to all humanity. When you took them, you declared war on every human parent in the galaxy." The general was led away in restraints while his crew watched in silence. The mighty Krelthos, conqueror of 17 star systems, had been defeated by an enemy he had completely underestimated. On the flagship Righteous Fury, Admiral Wan Kyung-ho received the best news of his career. "Admiral, all 12 children have been recovered safely. They are being transferred to medical ships for examination." Wan felt a weight lift from his shoulders that he had carried since first hearing about the kidnapping. But his job was not finished yet. "Signal all ships. Prepare to receive the children and their families from the new Sol. And bring me General Krelthos. I want to have a conversation with him." When Krelthos was brought before the admiral, he found himself facing not just a military commander, but a father figure representing the protective instincts of an entire species. "General, do you have children of your own?" one asked. "I have offspring, yes." "Then you should understand what you have done. You took someone else's children. In human culture, there is no greater crime." Krelthos struggled to comprehend the, human response. "But they were only 12 individuals out of millions. Your reaction seems disproportionate." Admiral Wan leaned forward, his eyes like steel. "Let me explain something about humans, General. We measure our worth not by how we treat the strong, but by how we protect the weak. Those 12 children represent everything we value about our future. But the cost of this rescue operation must have been enormous. There is no cost too high to protect our young. That is what makes us human." The reunion between the children and their families took place aboard the new Sol. Parents who had spent days in agonizing worry finally held their sons and daughters again. Tears of joy flowed as families were made whole once more. Sora ran into her parents' arms and hugged them like she would never let go. Jinho told his father about how brave Dr. Yoon had been during their captivity. Min-ae finally spoke again, when she saw her mother whispering, "I missed you," in a voice filled with love. Captain Lee Do-won watched the reunions with tears in his eyes. As the ship's captain, he had felt responsible for the children's safety. Seeing them return to their families was the greatest victory of his life. Dr. Yoon Hae-jin was treated as a hero for protecting the children during their captivity. She had risked her own safety to keep them calm and hopeful, and the parents thanked her with all their hearts. The news of the rescue spread throughout the galaxy faster than the original kidnapping report. Alien species everywhere learned about the human response and reached the same conclusion: never take human children. On the neutral station Deep Space 7, Ambassador Zelon called an emergency meeting of the Galactic Council. Representatives from dozens of species gathered to discuss what they had witnessed. "The human rescue operation was unlike anything in recorded galactic history," Zelon announced. "An entire species mobilized to save 12 individuals. We must update our diplomatic protocols accordingly." The Andromedan representative raised a tentacle. "What exactly are you proposing?" "I am proposing that we formally recognize human protective instincts regarding their young as a force of nature. Any species that harms human children should expect to face the wrath of all humanity." The motion passed unanimously. Within days, the Vexian Empire issued a formal surrender, not because their military had been defeated, but because their leadership realized they faced an enemy they could never understand or defeat. Grand Admiral Vexthok sent a message to Admiral Wan Kyung-ho that was broadcast throughout the galaxy. The Vexian Empire formally apologizes for the taking of human young ones. We did not understand the nature of your species. We surrender all hostilities and agree to any terms you demand. Admiral Wan's response was simple. Never touch human children again. That is our only demand. General Krelthos spent the rest of his life in a human prison, not as punishment, but as a reminder to other species about the consequences of threatening human families. Years later, when alien diplomats asked him about his experience, he would always give the same answer. I conquered 17 star systems and defeated countless enemies. But I learned too late that there is one enemy in this galaxy you must never make: an angry human parent. The story of the 12 Children War became required reading in military academies throughout the galaxy. It taught a simple but vital lesson.